Cool.
So we're in spiritual conversations, exploring the meaning of life. And Sai, I just love your tag, the truth. Tell me what it is.
Yeah, the truth is stranger than fiction.
Truth is stranger than fiction. Tell me, to me, that's kind of, there's something in the meaning of life in that. Tell me how you came up with that one.
Well, there was like a phase in my life when you could say I was seeking, and I was in the seeker mode and learned a lot of things that turned out to completely blow my reality open. And it really is stranger than fiction. And what some people think is magic or stories or fairy tales, these days are pretty real to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. There's miracles all the time.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
And the coincidences, synchronicities.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I used to not really care too much about coincidence, but now whenever there's like a synchronicity that happens, I'm just like, interesting. Like I pay attention to it because it's usually like a sign for something.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So you arrived at that tagline through your personal journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Whereabouts do you live, Sai? You're in the States?
Yeah, I'm in the States. I'm in San Francisco right now. But yeah, I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles before, and then Boston area, and then New York City area, and then before that, Bangladesh, actually.
Bangladesh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. And today, like we are 10/11, it's 9/11 for you there, isn't it? Today.
It's, is it? In terms of, no, it's still the 10th.
It's still the 10th. Okay, so it hasn't clicked over. Okay, what time of day is it?
It's almost 8 p.m. here.
Okay, so you've got a few hours to go. So, yeah, I suppose this is it's an interesting time, a synchronous time that I posed that question without even thinking that it would land on this day. It's the 11th today here in Australia, because I guess the meaning of life comes into everybody's minds when they recall some huge, disaster, tragedy, loss of life.
Yeah. Seriously. Are you in Melbourne or?
No, I'm at the top end of Down Under.
Where would that be? So north of the Gold Coast.
Yep. Keep
the
going.
Top right.
Yeah, Darwin.
Darwin. Okay, very cool.
Yeah, Darwin's the top end capital city. A lot of people refer to it as, the Australia's capital to Asia, the gateway to Asia. We're very close to Indonesia and Timor. Yeah. So for us to hop over the sea, it's only like 2.5 hour plane trip to get to Bali in Indonesia. And to get to Melbourne or Sydney, it's like 4.5 hours or 5 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So Margaret, tell me what does it mean to be an energy psychologist?
Okay. So an energy psychologist, I'm a psychologist, and my interest is in energy healing. So using energy work as part of my psychology treatment. And that involves the modalities of the main one I use is EFT, emotional freedom techniques. I don't know if you know that, but it's an energy-based technique. So
the tapping.
Yeah, the tapping. Yeah. When we do the tapping, it sends vibrations through the energy channels, and when you combine that with the cognitions, so the memory or the trauma or the feelings that go with the memory, and you send the vibrational shift through, it can have remarkable outcomes for people.
Yeah.
So it's quite powerful. So I like to, it's a very new field in psychology, energy psychology. I think it's becoming a new wave of psychology therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I love the fact that psychology is going that direction.
Yeah, well, me too, because we have to move forward.
Yeah.
I think there is more than just the talk therapy,
Hmm.
and which is traditional in many ways in psychology. But psychology's really embraced mindfulness and
Hmm.
meditation and techniques like that, which is very refreshing. And people are seeing the benefits, and I know that research has is already showing the
The
great
benefits.
benefits of
Yep.
EFT.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, in terms of the energies that you work with, do you have a certain like like have you studied EFT formally? And is there
yeah,
a
yeah,
like is there sort of a way to look at the body with energy
yeah.
and the physical body straight intertwined? Like what's the
Yes,
model?
yeah. I did study actually in America
Oh,
with
cool.
Gary Craig, the founder of the technique,
Hmm.
uh, who derived EFT from Roger Callahan, Dr. Roger Callahan, the psychiatrist, who was dabbling in energy work,
Uh-huh.
kinesiology. And there's a famous story about um, him discovering the benefit of energy work with one of his patients called Mary.
Hmm.
And there's a book called Tapping the Healer Within that's based on Mary's story. So he had this patient called Mary, and she had this terrible fear of water that she couldn't
Hmm.
even um, bathe herself. She had to
Hmm.
use a flannel to apply, water to herself. She just couldn't get in a bath or a shower. And one day she went to Roger's rooms and complained of feeling nauseous. And he said, tap here. I think this was the point here, because he'd been dabbling in this stuff. And so she started tapping there.
Hmm.
And then she got up out of her chair and she walked out of his office towards the pool that was in the yard. And he said, "Hey, woe back, woe back." He was fearful of her jumping in and not having any water skills. And
Ah.
so she got close to the pool and she called out, "Hey, I'm okay. I just want to touch water because I'm not afraid of it anymore."
Hmm.
And so that's how he discovered, almost accidentally, he was just experimenting with her tapping here.
Yeah.
And she didn't have that fear anymore and she went straight to the pool. Now, she'd been in therapy with him, for years.
Hmm.
And on this one occasion, it all disappeared. So
Yeah.
that's become
Yeah.
a bit of a hallmark in um, the awareness, the growing awareness. It was one of the benchmarks in knowing that when we tap on particular parts of the body,
Mhm.
our fears can go away.
Now, is it because the memory of that something that caused the fear is in the emotional body somewhere? When you're tapping, it can
Yeah,
dislodge that somehow and energetically.
um, yeah, um, it is. I have a belief, and none of this is final in the research yet. We don't really know what goes on in the body. But my theory is that it's no different to the energy in the electrical wires
Mm-hmm.
or in the line of communication with mobile phones and internet. We have an invisible energy field there,
Mm-hmm.
and like Einstein had discovered in his time, that everything uh, is made up of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow along the way, the human body got left out of that theory and that thinking. And we've never really regarded traditionally in traditional Western medicine that the body has an energy system and we have energy channels. However, the Chinese have been working in that way for a long time.
I was going to say, yeah. Have you looked at the different Chinese sort of subtle energy systems in the body?
Yeah. I'm not. I don't know all the meridian channels, but I know basically my working with people is to get the results, and I don't really push myself to understand why. My theory is that we have our painful memories that get stored in our body in some way, and when we have that, when we think of that memory, it actually causes us to get anxious or uptight. And so that tells me that it's lodged in the body somewhere. And so if we apply the tapping, we can usually shift that blockage that's stuck in the system. Yeah.
How do you know where to tap?
There's a bit of a formula in the EFT that combines many of the tapping points into one particular formula, and you apply the lot. It takes less than a minute. And so I just say apply the lot. That way you don't actually have to learn particular points for your issue. Yeah. So this is a little bit different to the meaning of life, but it's all tied up in it, I think.
Well, I could definitely go there. See, I studied at this place called the International Academy of Consciousness for a short period of time, and they have a pretty interesting system by which they describe your physical body, your emotional body, and other sort of subtle bodies that you have that all make up what is you.
Yes.
And what I've sort of come to understand is that what's called the emotional body is just an energetic body that is in the subtle realms, and that's where things are stored, that in terms of pains or memories and traumas, they store somewhere on you being not the physical, just you. And if you can target it in a very precise energetic way, it's just a matter of, like, our sciences hasn't figured out exactly how.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
we're always learning, and I think we have to recognize that we never know it all. Like the earth was once flat, and everyone knew that, and if you walked far enough you'd fall off. But as time's gone on, we have new understandings, and it takes quite a long time for those understandings to be accepted. So with this energy psychology, it's not mainstream now in the area of psychology, although it's getting out there more and more. And research is showing the positive benefits over some other treatments. Yeah, and I see that all the time. So that's why I'm quite intrigued. And when I did study with Gary Craig in Chicago, I was over there. He was, some of the stories that were told, and by people who were there, and doctors are shaking their heads and saying, this can't happen. This just cannot happen. Like, people's illnesses are reversing. And I have seen remarkable things. And yes, we don't know exactly what's causing it, but then I don't know exactly either how my light turns on, or how the energy ends up, giving me cold air out of the air conditioning. So I don't understand a lot of things, but I just know the results. And that's why I'm happy to work with this. I may not understand it completely, but I'm happy to work with the results.
Yeah. Which I think is the right way of looking at it. Have you looked into other sort of? I think we have King Morpheus 3000 joining us.
How y'all doing? I'm just sitting here listening. I'm listening.
Hey. Yeah. Well. No, join in.
Yeah.
We're talking about the meaning of life through the energy channels in the body.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to you.
Um, yeah, well,
Yeah.
Margaret, I guess a really good, interesting question would be what caused you to go down this path of exploring alternative energy medicine?
Good question. Yeah. And it is very much tied in with exploring the meaning of life. I was extremely debilitated for many years. I was bedridden for a long time, and I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia in days when I didn't
Wow.
even know it existed.
People
So
still argue that. Yeah, I mean, I met some people with CFS, and they're telling me a lot about how the mainstream world doesn't even accept that it's a real problem.
no, no. So and I was highly energetic, highly active beforehand, and now to be bedridden for like indefinitely, it went on and on and on and on, and so I became quite depressed, and I did have to explore the meaning of life in new ways and work out that being active doesn't was an impossibility to me. So what's the use of my life? Because that's how I always identified and brought meaning to my life. But this didn't work now. Was I still a worthwhile human being when I was like a living vegetable?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get, deep into those issues without even the cognitive functioning really to be able to explore it. And then I thought, okay, I'm not giving up. I just have to go looking in other places. So I looked and looked and looked and looked. And for 10
Wow.
years, I didn't find anything. And then I went to Sydney for my brother's wedding one year. And I remember arriving at Sydney Airport and I had to be in a wheelchair to get myself from, through the airport and straight into a car and then straight up to my parents' home and in bed. And like that was the level of energy, that's all I had. And so when I came back from that trip back to Darwin in the north,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I've got to have a look again on the internet. And so just went looking again for any treatments. And that's how I came across EFT. And I thought, well, it's stupid. A bit of tapping can't help me. I've had this for years, 10 years or so, and tapping's not going to fix it. And lo and behold, there was we were talking about synchronicity before, there was a whole lot of set of circumstances that just came together for me, like a formula in Johannesburg, from a doctor in Johannesburg, that I thought, okay, it's worth a shot. Cost me some money. I thought all the green lights were giving me the go signal.
Yeah.
EFT came into my focus. I started tapping. I started feeling better. And I haven't looked back. Straight away I became a practitioner, and then I took myself to Chicago, as I said, and trained Gary Craig. EFT, emotional freedom techniques. So it's otherwise known as tapping on the body, or tapping therapy. So it was through exploring the meaning of life at a very low time that I did learn there are other ways here.
So wow, that's, first of all, I need to connect you to someone that I know who has gone through exactly what you went through, and she is still mostly going through that, and it's probably been 10 to 15 to 20 years for her. And I don't think she's doing EFT, but she's looking into other sort of, like, she's doing different types of meditations to move her energy around, and she's already going down that path of alternative medicine. But I think she would really find it helpful to chat with you.
Definitely link her in. I'm just putting the title of my book in side. You can give her that.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
It's on Amazon, or my website is margaretlambert.com. That will link it to Amazon as an ebook or a hard copy book. So I thought, while I was bedridden, I thought, well, I've got to do something with this. And I was writing how I was feeling. And my book, a lot of it is the inside story to share for other people in the same position. Because there was nothing, there seemed to be no understanding or no resources outside of the medical arena, which doesn't shed much light on it anyway. But it's all the grief, it's all the emotional stuff, the psychological, those exploring the meaning of life once again, because I'm not the person I used to be, that I identify as who I am. That gives my life meaning. Suddenly that's out the window. So who am I? We come back to those basic questions. And so I wrote a lot of that for people in the same position.
Oh, wow. Perfect. I'm totally going to send that to her. If not, maybe she's already read it. Who knows?
And definitely link her in. I'd be happy to have a chat with her or whatever, email.
So do you feel all back to normal now with your energy levels and everything?
I'm doing remarkably well. I'm a practicing psychologist, and through that I went back and did psychology because my life, I used to be a teacher and librarian, but those, even though they were great careers at the time, there was something within me that moved me into psychology. So I went back to uni and studied psych, and in order to be able to, help others in a different way, because that was more meaningful. People when they're at rock bottom, I just felt a bit of a connection. It's a hard road for many people, and I just wanted to be able to walk that road with them and facilitate in any way that I could to make the journey a little bit easier.
So does tapping increase your energy, your body's energy, or what does tapping actually do?
Tapping, it can do a lot of things. The way for people who have got particular issues going on, particular struggles, and I believe now through my own experience and through working with so many people, I believe that many chronic conditions have an underlying psychological foundation, psychological, emotional. So it's our life story. I believe it's very much our life stories that have us feel the way we do. And so we actually have to open up that story. We have to open up the life story to see what's gone on in there that has formed those beliefs about yourself, that has caused your body to become so unwell. And when we unpack that, then we can use the tapping for the time my father kicked me out of home. We can take the individual events that were paralyzing for somebody or fearful for somebody, and we can neutralize, if you like, how they're holding those experiences in an uptight or negative way. And so the memory, you still have the memory of it, and you can still have an opinion that it's not a nice thing that has happened, but you don't have to hold that heavy feeling in your body. And I do think that something like chronic fatigue is an overdose of heaviness. Weighs you down, it's burdensome. The body can't get going. There's no lightness, no energy. It's an energy drain. And so what are the things that have happened in your life to pull your energy that's still pulling at it and sucking it? And that's what we have to release, get that out. And that's where tapping can help with the individual experiences. And that's along the lines, that's kind of getting into like the next book I'm writing is our story is so important in our healing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
King Morpheus, have you is that a proper name? Should I be calling you Mr. King?
Nah, King Morpheus is good.
Have you ever had any experiences with energetic work or energy work?
I have in reference to like chakra cleaning and stuff like that. But you know, that's to the extent of as far as chakra, get my chakras clean, that type of energy work. But the EFT is something new to me. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's all related to each other. Chakras are part of your energy body. EFT talks about meridians, which is part of your energy body. It's just different parts of the same system.
And EFT arose out of America, out of the States. Where are you, King?
I'm in Georgia, Lithonia, Georgia. But
Georgia.
You in Australia?
Yeah.
I just told a friend of mine I wanted to move to Australia today.
It's a great country. We love it.
Yeah, I'll be there in a year or two.
You will?
Yes.
Fantastic. Where would you go to? Sydney, Melbourne?
I was looking at all of them earlier, and I haven't made my decision yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 5 or 6 of them that I was looking at. It was called Perth or something like that. Sydney. It was a few other ones, so I haven't made my decision yet.
Yeah, I'm in Darwin. I'm in the very north, so that's Darwin's in the tropics.
What it's like in Darwin?
Yeah, Darwin's beautiful. It's very small though. It's only 120,000 people.
Okay.
It's we call it a city.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's probably just a little town to you guys.
Okay.
And it is the smallest city in Australia. Yeah, a lot of people love Darwin, but a lot of people don't like Darwin either because of the weather. We don't have regular seasons, the 4 seasons. We have wet and dry.
So if I wanted to drive to another city or something bigger, how long would it take me to drive from Darwin to
from Darwin? Darwin's a long way from everywhere. Darwin, like it would take you 3 days to drive to Brisbane, maybe 4 or 5 days really. We do it in 3, but we do very big days. Sydney and Melbourne, Tasmania, Hobart, like they're all closer together. Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, they're much closer, and you can get to those places in 12 hours, one to the other. Yeah, so but Darwin's their way.
So like in Darwin or anywhere, where would I find like darker colored people? Like, darker skinned people.
Darwin.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the Aboriginal people, our Indigenous people. Yeah. I spent many years working in Indigenous communities as a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's all in our state is called the Northern Territory. Okay. And that's where, but there are Indigenous people in other states, Western Australia as well, and Queensland. But the top end of Australia is where they mostly are, especially the more traditional people.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put Darwin on my list to visit to see how it resonates with me.
Do that. Yeah. So I'll put you on the spot now and ask you the topic question. What happens for you when you think about the meaning of life? How do you bring meaning to your life?
I bring meaning to my life in reference to doing things out of the norm, like striving to explore things that haven't been uncovered yet, like the possibilities of our physical body. Like I feel deep down in my that is more to us than what we express. And I'm striving through Tai Chi, meditate, just different things to unlock these things that I feel are ours.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We're more than that. There's a mantra that I say every day, and it's called "I am not the body. I'm not even the mind."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're more than all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just feel we've been conditioned to express the way that we do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like I'm gonna use the word boring to me. Like when I see normal things and consistent things, relationships, religion, and stuff like that, it's boring to me. It's not interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people have stories that they're playing out. The
Mm-hmm.
story of the victim, or the story of someone who's like coming up or getting revenge. Whatever that story is, but it's at a human level. And a lot of the times, it makes sense for. I mean, the whole reason we're here in this
Mm-hmm.
human experience is to go through some stories to learn some lessons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for those people who are going and having those experiences, it's meaningful for them, because that's what they came here to learn. And so it's kind of hard, especially for spiritual community. It's like to see that and not not think, oh, like they're less than me because they're doing that story and I'm above the story. But no, it's actually like, everyone's going through their own story for their own purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Barudi, hey, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Brody, thanks for jumping in.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm being inspired by this conversation, and this
Where are you?
non-conventional, non-traditional dialogue always gets my attention. So glad
That's
I
my
was able to
favorite kind of
join.
dialogue. That's my favorite kind. Yeah.
Where are you from, Barudi?
Originally from New York, but I presently reside in Atlanta. Been here for about 17 years.
In where?
In Atlanta.
So you're both in
Atlanta.
Georgia. King and
Yes.
Barudi.
Say again?
You guys are both in Georgia.
Yes. Yeah. I know King. I know King Morpheus.
Oh, very cool.
Great.
But yeah. That was very interesting, Margaret, listening to you talk about Australia. I can't say I can't say I'd ever thought of visiting, but I felt somewhat intrigued after listening to you talk about the different parts of the country and the continent, I should say, and
Yeah, it's a big and varied country, and like the States too. I've traversed the States. We hired a bit of a bomb of a car and we went from west to east. And wonderful country as well, and people were just so hospitable. So, Baruti, tell us your insights on the meaning of life. What brings meaning to your life?
What's interesting is that the answer is it's an evolving answer. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the answer might have been one thing. At 52 now, it's taken on, I would say, a different perspective, and not because I'm a fear of aging, but just because I think that the longer we live, or the longer we exist within this reality, the more we learn to never say never. And which in and of itself speaks to limitations when we say never. I'm inclined to believe that this life journey is really about experiencing. I think, I don't remember if it was you, Margaret, or is it Sai?
Yeah.
Is it Sai?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Said something to the effect, not that something to the effect that I am not the mind. The mind was that. I think that was you, Margaret.
Yeah.
That was Margaret. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, for me, when I think about life today, it's just about the vast possibilities that we have to just experience. And I don't want to put anything after that word experience, because I believe that to experience really speaks to the definition of life itself. Everything that we experience is a part of this life experience. And so the more open and willing we are to what comes in that space, I think it just enriches life. And, we are, and I think Morpheus sort of alluded to this, we're so conditioned, or have been so conditioned to be afraid, to operate within a box or within a certain way of thinking, to stay in our lane, don't ever consider the possibility of relocating from Atlanta to Australia, because that could never work. You got to step, just as an example, but and then other things that all are designed to kind of keep us boxed in, locked in terms of our way of thinking, and really just missing out on life. So, when I think of life today, to me, it's, it is just the epitome of change and just life, just living. Whatever I think about, whatever I imagine happens because I have the ability to create it. And so it just becomes a matter of whether or not I'm going to accept that and pursue the creation of that thing, which I don't have to, because so it is a constantly evolving answer.
Yeah. I love it.
Margaret.
I love it. Yeah. Love that response. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And Sai, we haven't heard it from you. What brings meaning to your life?
So, yeah, I mean, just like Birdie said, it's always changing. But I guess the best way for me to put it is, so there's actually two questions there. There's, what is the meaning, and then what brings meaning to your, right?
Yeah.
I guess for me, the first question, what is the meaning, is more rather, it's not like a single answer. It's more, the meaning is what you give it. Which is the second question. What's the meaning that I give it, right? Well, I think the meaning is to grow, to experience. And, if we are, this thing, consciousness, and we just had to have an experience of what we're doing right now, an experience of life, to learn, to grow, because we can, and it's a long path. It's of growing, refining, and learning, and we go through many, many stories to sort of get value and collect things to improve ourselves to some ultimate goal. And what that ultimate goal is, I have no idea. but it all really just comes down to my meaning. What I give it is, to spend as much time as I can to grow in whatever capacity.
Yeah. That's very much along the lines. I think we're all very aligned in our thinking. having heard from all of you, I often, say to the people I work with that, I tell them my perspective in them trying to get over a bit of a hurdle or whatever it is, that I believe that we are here to become the best possible people that we can become.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's lots of dips and and turns that mold us, I suppose, if we're willing to be molded and come back again and shape ourselves. And it's very much the co-creation that we can't exactly say the person will become, because there's so many, there are external forces and there's a greater force than us that has a say. Like when a disaster happens or a tragedy, you lose your baby or you get a chronic illness, you don't ask for that stuff, but then you have to deal with it. And so it's, okay, that co-creation, how can I use this experience to become an even better person? And, I think that's always a challenge that I try to keep at the forefront of my life, to keep giving it meaning. Yeah. So,
just if I may, to, I guess, in part to what Sai mentioned, I believe we lose our appreciation for life when we become fixated on the idea that we have to know the answers or the outcomes. I would dare say I'm not a historian of sorts, but I would be inclined to believe that as people, if we're operating in a state of fear, for example, of what happens next, or what, after this particular state of consciousness comes to an end, what next? If I'm afraid of that, if I am worried about that, if you will, then it's going to hamper my ability to truly appreciate this point in consciousness that I'm experiencing right now. But when you come to that place where you realize that you don't have to know the answers, that, that the outcomes, first of all, they're not defined. So I can't spend my life, quote unquote, living for what can't be defined, and just live. I think that we would discover truly how enriched this entire experience really is. Just by releasing the fear of what's the answer, or what comes next, or when if we really just got down to it, I mean, we don't know. And worrying about it is not going to help us to know. We're still going to continue to live and continue to have this experience, and this experience is going to transition at some point, we assume. And so the best thing that we can do is to maximize every moment of it to its fullest, and let the chips fall where they will. In the next, if it's reincarnation and I come back as a grasshopper, then cool. I mean, I'll be the best grasshopper I can be, whatever it is. But to appreciate this moment now that we have, and I just think we're wasting so much of this journey, this experience, worrying about what happens next. And I heard Sai talk about, not knowing the outcomes, and I can tell by the way he said that he's not worried about what the outcomes are or what comes next. He's enjoying the now, and that's what matters. Not to put words in your mouth, Sai. is how I kind of interpreted.
No, you're right on.
I love, what you said, Baruti. And I think it's, isn't it interesting that it's almost the opposite of our education system, of what we teach kids. Like we shove knowledge.
You have to plan for the future and then get the job and get the career and get the SATs and
exactly.
Never in the present. Don't ever feel
I don't think, and I used to be a teacher, but we don't tell kids it's okay not to know. And you can be relaxed with that.
Yes.
Which is exactly what you're saying. We tell them the absolute opposite. You must know. You must know that.
Yes.
And so no wonder we...
and we don't know. We tell them they must know, and we don't know. You know?
Yeah, but the deepest thing...
Yeah, and my father was a very learned man, and he passed away at 93 years of age. And you know, he always used to know. He's a very senior man in education and in his field, and you know, from about the time he was 70, moving through his 70s and then his 80s, he would more and more say, the older I get, the less I know.
Yeah,
because it's interesting. Like what I look at knowledge as is knowledge is a disguise of ignorance. Like you're only sharing what you think is right in the moment. So as you grow, you learn. Like, man, I shouldn't even said that. Because in this reality, I have this strange thing, and I want y'all to think about. We're conditioned to die. Like, we're trained to die. Like, you know how they say you born in here and you're going to die or whatever? Because if you keep doing everything the way we do it, of course you're going to die. So I'm thinking we should find different ways to extend the journey. Because if you keep doing what you're taught, like you're born into this reality to parents that believe they're going to die, and then they instill that into you. So in your mind, subconsciously, you're creating death.
Yeah.
And I believe that we can go beyond that thinking.
Wow. Yeah. I love that we're all so open. We all have this other perspective than the end of the road, the day we're going to die, and you know, no one's saying that. I love it. Yeah.
You know, I think I heard someone reference once that the opposite of I'm trying to say that the opposite of being born is dying, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Go
ahead, Mark.
Huh?
Say again.
No, I didn't say that.
In an infinite world, in an infinite universe, there is no death.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So you know, to Morpheus's point, you know, we buy into these, oh God, I don't even know what we want to call it. These limitations, I guess, if you will, that really don't apply, and then live as though they are the rule, you know. And it's unfortunate, but you're right. I mean, you know, what we know is this present state of consciousness, and for some of us, that's all we know. I mean, there are those that I've encountered who have talked about, you know, where they've been able to or they've experienced or become aware of past life regression. You know, they've been able to see themselves in prior expressions of reality, and even those that talk about what they perceive as being the next phase. But again, we don't know. And so, and it's really okay to not know.
Yes.
You know, it's actually invigorating to not know.
It's exciting.
You know?
It's actually exciting.
Yeah.
But that
Margaret,
said,
as a teacher, you know, the teaching process, and that's really where the greatest forms of indoctrination take place, between that and religion. But like, for example, I heard someone say the other day that from first grade, from pre-K or whatever it is, through second grade, children are being taught how to read, and then from third grade on, they're being taught what to read. You know, and but you think about those first years and the way that they're used to kind of shape the psyche of us as individuals, so that you know, when we start to read to learn, I'm sorry, that's what it was. From kindergarten until second grade, we're learning to read, and from third grade on, we're reading to learn. And once you've been conditioned a certain way, it impacts even what you read and how you interpret what you read. If you are operating in, or if you've been indoctrinated into a belief system that says, as Morpheus alluded to, that, you know, this life is but for a time, and at a certain point you're going to die, and so, you know, in order for this life to be fulfilling, you have to accomplish all of these different things, then that's going to impact the way you learn as you read, again, versus, you know, simply seeing the whole thing as just this wide open journey of experiences.
Yeah, and those early years are so formative. I mean, it takes the rest of your life to unlearn the stuff that you were taught in those ages. And to really, like, when you look at the difference between parents who are a little bit more aware and awake, and the way that their children behave and the way that their children treat each other, it is a world's difference from the parents who are the exact opposite, right? And you see that a lot of the times the struggles that they have in their personal lives are very closely tied to parents, and very closely tied to family and that early childhood. And even bringing it back to EFT, for, you know, like a lot of those, like you can have early traumas in life that gets in your body, that it takes a whole lifetime of tapping to get rid of.
I see it all the time. That's a lot of the work I do. It's always the childhood stuff that's in the way, that form those beliefs that pull people down or have them feel anxious or fearful. They just got lodged in the system. They learnt them, you know, not through any fault of anyone. It's just the way they've taken on board an experience. But of course, so a lot of it is the way we are raised.
And speaking to what Brudu was saying earlier about past lives, I mean, a lot of it is, I mean, some of it does come from past lives as well, in terms of like traumas, you know, when you have people who have traumatic deaths before it was their time, you tend to, if you do past life regression and those memories come back, a lot of the times they're not from this current life, you know? So it's like unlearning even not just this life, but, you know, some of the pains that we picked up in the previous ones.
What I realized, scoping through me and my reality, I realized it's things I was affected by in my childhood that I didn't even remember happening.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Your body remembers. Your mind doesn't.
Yeah. So what happened? It shaped who I am unconsciously. But as I go back and dig through and pull all this junk out, I'm like, man, I didn't even remember that happened. You understand? But I realize how it affects my interaction in the now. So really now I came up with this new term, like, because they got this this thing that they created called abortion, like when they abort children. But I found a way to abort my thoughts, like different things that happen to me. I abort it, and it disappears, man, and it's gone. Like, because that stuff hinders you from connecting with your true self or your true reality or that super being that you're here to discover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways. Hey, Margaret?
It's interesting that, like in the Bible, and I know, religion has its pluses and minuses, but in the Bible, somewhere it says, unless you become like little children, you won't have access to the kingdom of heaven, and whatever that kingdom of heaven is. But I'm thinking it's that unlimited, that infinite consciousness, that place. And if we limit ourselves, through all the boundaries that we have around us in our lifetime, we aren't open to that place. And so unless we become, as like you said, Barudi, I think, we spend so much time having to unlearn. So it's getting back to that childlike state where we can be much freer and open to, we don't know, we're childlike. We don't know the answers. We don't know anything, it's, it's interesting.
Yeah. So
our parents.
Like I've heard this, I would say we don't have to unlearn. In fact, I don't even really believe that there is such a thing as unlearning. The rules, when we talk about, if we're talking about universal law or universal principles, these apply whether we're in a state of consciousness or acceptance of them or not. And so everything that we're learning or experiencing, like I said earlier, after that word experience, it's everything that comes. Everything we're learning and experiencing is all a part of this journey for us. Now, when we come into a place of greater awareness or expanded consciousness, if you will, all of the stuff that we learned just becomes a part of our greater sense of awareness and consciousness. So because I spent, for example, a number of years in organized religion, and today, when I think about it, it serves me no purpose today. However, as I think about it, even in an expanded conscious way of thinking, there are things that I can recall from that part of my experience that take on a greater sense of meaning and understanding today than the way that it was presented to me years ago. For example, Margaret, you just mentioned the scripture that says, except you come as a child, you cannot receive except the kingdom of heaven. I do the same thing. I say, I know it's in there somewhere. Morpheus will tell you, I do that all the time. But when that was presented to me many years ago, it was not with me in a state of consciousness or expanded consciousness. It was all part of doctrine and dogma. So it was all designed to control and to dictate my steps. Yes. But now today, when I hear that verse, what I think about is the fact that when a child enters this reality, they are as wide open as you could possibly be. I mean, literally, they are a sponge for everything. The entire gamut is it's all beautiful to them. They want to take advantage of all of it. They want to be a part of all of it. They want to experience all of it. They're open to all of it. As we move on and age and become, I guess, conditioned or indoctrinated or taught as we begin to read, to learn, that view narrows, and we start to take everything that we're looking at and placing it into, or evaluating it through the lens of whatever those things are that we've been taught. So whatever the teaching has been, that's how we evaluate, as opposed to seeing the world as this wide, as seeing the universe as this wide open expanse that we have the ability to explore and to experience on all different levels. So again, I don't, we can't unlearn. We don't want to unlearn, because all of it is a part of the journey for us. It's all part of the experience. As we learn, when we reference back to the things that we've learned in the past, it just takes on a whole different meaning and experience for us. And that's part of what makes this whole thing so powerful.
Yeah, Baruti, I think you have a great way. I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think you have a great way of just expressing an idea, and you're really eloquent at making that a very clear concept. And so I really appreciate that.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And secondly, I think a better way of saying that, for me, when I said unlearn, I think might be unlimit my belief system. Like, there are beliefs that I picked up in the past that were limiting beliefs, and the process of late was more I guess removing those limiting beliefs, and your reality is created by your beliefs. The upper limit of what's possible is limited by you, and so that's been the unlearning process for me. Is, getting rid of those belief systems.
Well said, Guy. So,
Yeah,
Daryl,
well,
where are you from?
I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
I was there in 2004. I was in Edmonton.
Oh, okay. I must have just missed you.
You've got the biggest mall in the Northern Hemisphere or something. Yeah. So we're going to wind up shortly, but I'm glad you jumped in and give us your words of wisdom.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if you would call it words of wisdom per se, but
contribute.
And I hope this is relevant to the theme of the discussion. But speaking on my own personal behalf, I find that I have to believe in the metaphysical. So I have to believe that consciousness is metaphysical. That it's not just purely an effect of biochemistry and neurons firing. That there's something extra to it, to the effect of it. Mm-hmm. I have to believe in free will. There's something inside me, that needs to connect with a God, that needs to search for a God, to seek a God. It's like an instinctual need within me, some people are like deterministic, right? They believe in determinism, and that everything is just purely cause and effect. But I just simply don't. I don't find much value in that, and I also find it quite depressing, in the belief system of determinism, and there's just there's just something within me that demands that I do have free will, you know, and that and maybe it's my, you know, maybe it's my willingness, my urge towards the metaphysical that's proof of the metaphysical in some profound way.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's where I'm coming from. I hope this is like on topic.
It's great. I think that's a really interesting. It's certainly a perspective that I hold as well. That there is something greater than ourselves, and whatever name we give that, the God or the universe, the great spirit master, whatever.
Sure.
You know, there's something greater than we are, and we aspire to that. And I think there's a spark in each of us. I kind of see that we have the spark of that godness in us as well, and that's why we do relate in that way and yearn almost for that greatness.
I think Daryl, I think you're spot on, and I think you're gonna have a fun time exploring this because there's a lot. What I would say is the physics of consciousness is basically physics that we just haven't been able to fully understand yet scientifically. So another way to put it is what you're defining as metaphysical, beyond physics, beyond physical.
Right.
I would just define as there's a range of different frequencies you can be tuned to, and the physical is physical to you because you're tuned to it right now. But if you were tuned to a different wavelength, that different station would be physical to you. So what you define as physical is relative to where you are. And so I do believe that there's other things that are not in this wavelength, you could say, that are interacting with us all the time. And I think that's why this hard problem of consciousness exists, because you're like, where is it? Is it in our brains? Are we having the experience of consciousness because the neurons in our brain are firing in a way that you perceive reality, or is there something else that's sort of operating, interacting with it that we don't fully understand yet? So I think you definitely have fans here in terms of that topic.
Okay, well, on that note, this has gone on longer than I normally do, but it was a bit late kicking off. Everyone was a bit late coming in, and I think I might have had some techie problems to begin with. So thanks so much for everyone and people on the side as well with their comments for joining in. And I'm looking forward to that conversation. Daryl, was it you creating it in the metaphysical realm?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that tonight, actually. So I don't know if I'll do it tonight or tomorrow, but I mean, I appreciate you fitting me into the conversation, just before your end. Yeah.
Thanks for the contribution. And I run these spiritual conversations every Friday at the same time. So a different topic. Yeah, just spiritual conversation, and the actual topic might be something different. I don't know what it is next week. It might be, I don't know, metaphysical. No, I'll leave that one for you to explore. But yeah, we'll have a spiritual conversation next week at the same time. And I also run a Wednesday session at the same time, and that's called Wellbeing Weekly. So it's a bit more earthy, keeping ourselves in good shape. And the Friday one, kind of, teasing out that other area.
You got to really question, why do we yearn? Why do we yearn for something more? And I think the answer is almost in the question. To some extent. I don't think, like, for example, God, I don't think is a concept that humanity just came up with a story and they felt comfortable with. I think it's a lot more complex than that. I think there was an instinctual yearning towards it. It's almost like we're built to yearn for more.
Yeah. Well, there's the quote. Oh, who said it? And it's out of Gospel or Bible. Our hearts will not rest until they rest in you. Our hearts are always yearning.
That's a good quote.
Yeah. Our hearts are always yearning and will not rest until they rest in you. So on that note, I'm going to close this off. Someone's just
yes.
The king. Yeah. So thanks for your contributions, and hope I catch you on another blab, and tune in next week on Spiritual Conversations.
Yeah, I'll try my best to tune in next week as well. So.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Love your insights and your input. Thanks, Si. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, guys.
Good meeting you, Daryl. Barudi and Morpheus. Great chatting to you guys.